Hey, welcome to Deep Dive. I'm so glad you're joining us today, whether you're watching us online or joining us on the podcast. Wherever you are and taking this in, I'm glad you're here. Recently, we talked about breaking free from the past in our What Lies Beneath sermon series. And in this sermon that we were talking about how do we break free from the sin that wasn't really chosen for us, sin patterns that we inherit in our life that we have natural tendencies to lean towards. So a child of an alcoholic will have a tendency to lean towards alcoholism themselves. Someone who was abused can often become an abuser. Someone who keeps secrets can find that their children keep secrets from them as well. We find that sin patterns repeat over and over again. Paul writes about this in Romans chapter 7, verses 21 and following. He says, I've discovered this principle of life, that when I want to do what is right, I inevitably do what is wrong. I love God's law with my whole heart, but there is another power within me that is at war with my mind. This power makes me a slave to the sin that's still within me. This principle of life is that we inherit from our families of origin patterns that we tend to repeat in future generations. In fact, Moses writes about this in the book of Numbers, chapter 14, verse 18, that the sins of the parents, they don't just disappear, that they actually are laid upon the children 3 and 4 generations that follow. So as you were listening to that talk, if you were thinking, well, how do I know if there is a family sin pattern that I need to break free from? Let me give you 3 things you can do right now to begin to discover the family sin patterns that maybe are controlling you or causing you to live lives that don't glorify God. First step is investigate. We have to investigate what's going on. The way that I did this within my family of origin is I did what's called a family voyage. What I did is I came up with 20 questions, and then I began to call my siblings, I called my parents, I called my aunts and uncles, and I began to ask them about their experiences within our family. And in that process, what I discovered was certain patterns that are repeated one generation after another. What you'll find within every family of origin is that there is somebody that has the family stories, maybe even the family secrets. Take time to sit down with them and to listen about the stories of your great-grandparents or your grandparents or even your parents. And look for the patterns that repeat from one generation to the next. You know, one of the tools that you can use is what's called a genogram. And if you go to Emotionally Healthy Discipleship, you will discover some tools around genograms. And this is a great thing that it's like a family tree where you chart out the patterns that are repeated from one generation to the next. That's the first step. Investigate. The second step is once you have done these interviews and investigated, bring it to Jesus. Bring everything into the light of Jesus. Begin to talk with him about it and say, Jesus, what are the patterns in my family of origin that I'm repeating in my life? And where do I see things that need to change? Begin to bring it into the light of Jesus with people who are like-minded, who are followers of Jesus, and who can listen to your family stories and begin to help you identify the problems that need to be addressed in your life, the chains that need to be broken. So bring what you find into the light of Jesus, because when you do, all of a sudden, all these chains, all these things that are inherited will be broken. The last step is to walk in step with the Spirit. Romans 12, verse 2 says, don't be conformed any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will know what God's will is, his good and pleasing and perfect will. You see, Jesus wants to transform the way that you think. He sends Holy Spirit in order to transform the way you think. You see, you grow up with these patterns that have taken root within your brain, within your life. And Jesus says you don't have to be conformed to them any longer. That Holy Spirit can actually teach you how to live and to walk God's way. In Galatians chapter 5, it talks about the fruit of the Spirit. And after Paul writes about letting Holy Spirit lead us forward into producing love and joy and peace and patience and gentleness and goodness and kindness and self-control, all these things that may not be from your family of origin, once he talks about how to let Holy Spirit produce these in our lives, he says, so keep in step with the Spirit. You see, here's what you need to know. In order to live continually free from the patterns of sin that you inherited from your family of origin, you need to bring it into the light so that Jesus can break those chains. But then you also need to keep in step with the Spirit. Let Him guide you forward into the freedom that is yours. Friends, you can be free today. The same person who wrote that God passes on the consequences of parent sin also writes that when parents begin to follow Jesus or begin to follow God, that actually they pass that on as well to 1,000 generations. Here's the important thing you need to know, that in the process of breaking free from the past, this is not about breaking free from your family. It's actually about redeeming your family. You see, when you discover that there are sin patterns that you don't want to repeat, you should not shut your family out. Actually, this should cause you to step even more into your family, because Jesus wants to use you to redeem your whole family, not just you. And so, friends, you can break free. It's all about coming into the light of Jesus and keeping in step with the Spirit. Your family will thank you for it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll subscribe wherever you are listening to this or watching it. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to email us or leave it in the comment space below. Until next time, take care.